Hey guys, Zeteo here. Welcome to another Beyond All Reason replay analysis. Today we're going to be doing a quick look at Blackmelon as they play this 1v1 on Isidis Crack and versus Spoderfriend. I did take a very quick look beforehand to just kind of get a sense of what's going on here. I thought it was a reasonable 1v1. So I'm going to try to point out some of the good stuff that you're doing as well as some of the mistakes that you're making. Anyways, let's get into it. And actually, one of the things I want to do here first before we even do that is just see how the openers compare, right? I think yours is a little bit different than Spoderfriend. So Spoderfriend here is going for the 3 mechs. I believe a solar afterwards as just their opener, and I believe, yeah, you're going for the 2 wins here before the 3rd mechs. So taking a look at the wins right now, it's lower. You know, so that makes sense to build a second one. I think you do this pretty perfectly considering you're going wins. But having these 3 mexes up, you know, now basically means, okay, so they do this trick. So you can do this to not stall on this 3rd mex. You just like start building the solar collector a little bit before, you know, as you're building the 3rd mex, as you run out of energy. And that way your energy builds up a bit as, you know, so you can put it into the 3rd mex. Personally, when I do this, I tend to do the low priority trick, which is basically, you know, just get all 3 mexes, build the solar after that, and then the wins. And on low priority, that basically means your mexes that are here will not stall when you run out of energy. So a little tiny tidbit there, not really a huge factor in this game, but we will take a look at the stats. So Spoderfriend here is already up on metal produced by small bits because of that. And then, of course, Blackmelon, you are ahead on energy because of that extra wins. The 2 wind is basically the wind was at a point where the 2 wind was stronger than a solar. Alright, so the labs are coming down. Okay, so let's go back to your view. We'll make some more comparisons as this goes on to just kind of show you the difference. But yeah, speeding it up for now, 3 times. Okay, getting your wins, assisting the lab, getting more wins. Okay, you solve for like a half second, not a huge deal. Okay, so first constructor going out, grabbing these 2 mexes, grabbing these 3 mexes, building a tower and a radar, and then a whole bunch of wins. And even building a construction turret to like assist the wind there, right? And this is kind of a nice little nook for that, right? It's mostly safe. I mean, early on it's kind of hard to defend, but later on, you know, it's going to be much safer once you have a bunch of units out. Let's clear this up. Unpause. Okay, so the rest of your opener is mostly grunts. I'm not sure when you have these construction bots queued in there, but I mean, I guess maybe your whole plan is to build like a ton of grunts, and then like when you want to switch into constructors, you just cancel. Personally, I like to use the repeat, but to each their own. I like using repeat and then inserting the units when I want them. Okay, so you got 2 scout grunts going out. You got a couple more coming down the center here. So this is you know, it's a reasonable opener. It's like a middle of the grounds kind of opener. Like it has some units, but it also has that early con. But it's mostly on the side of aggression, right? Because you're getting so many grunts out. Now, the positions here, you know, you can assume that they're basically there, and you're basically here, right? Taking these other spots would not be as good. So it's not really that long of a distance, but it's also not that short either, right? And to harass the back spots, you have to go even further. So like, it's kind of a long distance if you consider like going all the way around. And so when you get there, if they opened up with 2 cons or 3 cons, you know, not like in a row, but like with a couple of grunts mixed in, you know, they can easily shoo away your scouting grunts, and they'll have the economic lead from those, you know, those faster constructors. You know, so you're basically pumping out a ton of grunts here. to try to get something done. And if you don't get something done, then it's kind of a loss. And taking a look at what's here, there's already 2 grunts defending this constructor. Let's see, they have a radar, which of course is very important to see, what's coming in from these side angles. And down here, obviously you have this grunts over here. And so they're pretty well defended. Let's see, but they do have 2 constructors out at this point. Let's see, a third one probably on the way pretty soon. Okay, so you take that out. Okay, so now you have 4 more coming here. So by the time you actually get down here, they have plenty of grunts to defend everything. Let's see. Yeah, they're still going to use... Okay, they even pull one back to that side and just have 3 down here because there's only 1 grunt down here, so there's no reason to over-defend it, right? Okay, so they pick that off. Alright, and then shoo this army away. Okay, so that's basically how this kind of thing goes when they open up how they did compared to your opener. Or versus your opener. Now, if you wanted to be like hyper aggressive, I would say this is not really the map for it because it's such a long distance to get in the back, like I was saying. Now, you do have these 3 grunts here and these 4 here and a couple down the center, right? But the thing is, you basically have to like engage and pull back whenever you see their army. Like, don't engage their army. You want to just like take their awareness off of somewhere else. Like it's a distraction play. So you have 1 group here, 1 group here, and 1 eventually in the center. So you distract them over here while these units actually do damage over here. So it's more about like, running in, running out, and just like pulling their attention to those grunts. And if they're not paying attention, then all of a sudden you just run past, right? That's generally how you do such a thing. Unfortunately, your couple of scout grunts just got picked off. But you'd want to do the same thing with them. Alright, so you do some, this is reasonable with these 3 grunts here. But knowing that there's units here, and knowing that, these mexes are in this spot and not here, like you basically can't get there in time. So I think this is a better time to just move your grunts out. Or maybe even not even that far back, just move them like here and send and, utilize these guys over here instead. Of course, all that is much easier said than done. Yeah, unfortunately, you only get a tower here, so you lost a bunch of units here for that. So now, even though you started with the army advantage by producing so many like extra grunts, you're now in a sticky situation because you lost those grunts, and now, the army values are basically even. In fact, red's even slightly ahead. And you're further behind on constructors because you weren't able to pick those off. Alright, so you have switched into building some more constructors, so that's great. You're going to need them. Yeah, since you're producing only grunts, I don't know if you really need 2 constructors plus a commander doing it. Or I guess you're getting a construction turret now. Like you could potentially pull one of these constructors off to start grabbing some more of these side mexes, since this guy's only doing these up here. But just to break it down into like the expansion, like, or how Spoderfriend is expanding, basically, expanding forward this way, having this guy, basically went this way to grab all these, and then has a third con going down here to grab all of these. So this is actually a really strong economic opener here. Compared to where you're at, you're finally sending the guy this way. This guy's only grabbing these 3, he's grabbing some wind turbines, which is fine. It's just like a different way of doing things. But you don't have anything over here at all. So that's why I was saying you could peel one of these guys off to go do that. And then the other thing to consider if you're having more constructors out doing that kind of stuff is you're going to need more energy faster. So each time you send another constructor out and then also send another guy to get energy for that constructor, and then also build on the extra build power to utilize it, well, that's all just not units, right? So it does set you back. But given the distance and given the situation, that actually makes sense to do, because there's only so much that an aggressive play can do because these grunts are being so defensive. So you're already kind of behind in a way because of all that. I mean, I guess the metal income doesn't quite reflect that at the moment because you were able to get some damage done, but these constructors are already out on the field grabbing those mexes. And in fact, another one's going up this way to put down some more. So there's actually 4 expanding paths here for red compared to your 2. Well, actually this one's not even expanding anymore, it's just getting energy. So really it's just this guy. And now it looks like you have peeled away this guy to expand here. So you got 2, they got 4. So just to show the difference. So it's like Spoder Friend here has to play defensively considering all that, but it's doing a very good job of it. Just having units on all these different sides, having radar. This radar has pretty good coverage. You'd have to go like all the way around to like even for that radar to not see you. But then there's also the second radar, so they'd for sure see you once you get around this location. So like it's pretty well covered given those 2 radars. And you can't really get too much done. And just like their opener was a slightly better opener win against yours, essentially. So sizable disadvantage because of that. Okay, nice D-gun there. Yeah, I believe you lost some. I missed this, but basically I think you lost some units around here. Dang, I wish I didn't miss that. But basically, you decided to be aggressive with a few units balled up against like a concave of units. And they had more units and were in a concave, so like it wasn't going to pan out, but you barreled in there and just lost all those units. Now the reason why that's bad, it's not like it's just straight up bad to be aggressive, right? It's good to be aggressive if you can get some economic damage done. If you're just fighting a battle, you want to consider where is that battle being taken place. Is it on your side of the map or their side of the map? Is it easier for you to resurrect and or reclaim those units, or is it easier for them? And given the map is basically split this way, over here is definitely on red's territory. So red can easily, resurrect those units and use them against you. And, and even after the D-guns, the nice D-guns here that kind of balance it back out, they're still slightly ahead. Let's see, so you got 2 consorts now, red has... Okay, so red is still on 1 with 1 constructor assisting, and you're on just 2, okay. But yeah, at this point your metal's starting to rise mainly because you're producing grunts and they produce so cheaply and quickly that there's a lot of, like there's a higher percentage of time of that unit just like moving out of the factory and the factory just not being utilized. So you can't really boost the lab any further at this point. So it kind of makes sense to stack up a little bit of metal to get down your vehicle lab. Which I think you do. And of course spending maybe a little bit more towards energy here. So I wouldn't mind if this guy started producing more wind turbines. I also wouldn't mind, since your energy was so low with wind dipping down and your metal doing okay, to just put down another solar or 2. With the idea of, reclaiming them as you build up enough wind turbines or advanced solar. Alright, so here... Yeah, there's just like a lot going on. I can understand not playing this perfectly because, I mean, handling this army here and handling this army here and handling your commander, and then all the macro in the back, of course. It's kind of a lot, right? Some nice D-guns. Unfortunately, well, I was going to say you don't really capitalize on the fact that you just like got this engagement done. You know, like personally, what I like to do, and not necessarily on this map, but just in general, like so you have an engagement on one side of the map, and you win it. Well, now those units are in a reasonable position to do some harass, or to do some harass this way. On this map, of course, you have these big rocks in the way, so like it's kind of hard. Because ideally, if this rock wasn't here, you'd want to send them like maybe this way, knowing that there's these defenses here. And by the way, Exploiter's OP, very OP. So a light laser tower, you know, it takes 2,700 build time and 90, you know, metal, plus the 50 from the extractor. Compared to an exploiter, you know, it's 240, but it's also 2,700 for build time. So you're basically cutting out the cost of, or the build time of the extractor itself by doing exploiter instead of tower. And here red is even doing exploiter plus tower plus tower. So this is pretty well defended here against grunts. Right, grunts have a hard time against those light laser towers. And so you can't really do much there. So you kind of have to go around somewhere else. And because of this rock, you'd have to go even further around. So it's you know, it's more iffy. So I can understand that. Also, I think I missed this too, but there are some enemy units here, and you were engaging here. They pulled back, which is really smart because equal footing, it's on your side. So they pull back to not gift that metal. So they pull back, you come along this way to try to cut them off, right? You know, thinking that they're going to be going this way. Well, they end up chilling down here and then moving right back up. And you see them moving back up, so then you swing back this way. What would have been better in that situation is knowing that they're here and you're basically defending over here. You know, if they decide to turn around and go back down, you know, basically keep some units up here, but also keep basically part of those units coming back down this way. And then so you chase with these units, and then you cut them off with these units. And that way, you know that they're not running into your base, right? They can't do that with your unit stationed here. And if they, you know, and obviously you're going to have less units than they do in that particular case, because you have some split off over here. But these units back up, right? They, like if the enemy pursues, you back up, and then you come in with these guys and try to engage at the same time. And that way they're completely flanked and surrounded, and it makes it a lot easier to kill those off. But yeah, as it happens, you know, they came up here, you responded by coming up here, they came back down here, and then you engaged like around here somewhere, or something like that, or maybe it was over here. I'm not even sure. I think those are probably the same units that you just degunned. Yeah, I mean it worked out for you, so it's fine. This, no, like I was just saying, you know, grunts are not great against LTs and exploiters. And the chance of you killing this exploiter is very, very small. I wouldn't mind if you mixed in a couple of rocket bots. Like after you won that engagement, like mixed in just like 2 or 3 rocket bots to like put on fight command down this way. You know, and take this stuff out. Because they can't fight back because they don't have the range, right? Meanwhile, you have defenses here already to protect those rocket bots. So you have your grunts move down this way. And that way you can harass stuff this way. And I wouldn't really expect an exploiter here, but there is one, so that would be kind of rough as well. So I would maybe see the exploiter and then decide like, oh, let's try running up this way then instead, or something like that. But I don't know, it gets rough when the enemy has a bunch of exploiters everywhere, because they do so well against grunts. But yeah, you basically lose that for nothing. And that 450 is, you know, the cost of your units minus the cost of the tower that you took out. So that's the difference there. Okay, so Spotter Friends here is like, so this is really good, what they're doing here. And just to point it out, they're testing you. So you got units here, and they move units up here. Now they could potentially just keep going, right? but they decided to just back up. So they're testing like how you know, how much are you paying attention to this army? And you know, there's definitely a opportunity for them to go up, but they see this army and they realize like, okay, if I keep going and they do see me, they can easily respawn, take those guys out, and then I'm losing, you know, a bunch of units that are going to go to them, you know, get resurrected or reclaimed. So deciding that, they decide to pull back, right? Which is smart. You know, poking but not like committing. Very strong. Okay, they also got these units running around. Well, unfortunately, that tower's not done yet, so these are going to get in. So, I don't know if you noticed this when you were playing, but this was completely a distraction play. So like I was just saying, they go up here, they see that your units are parked here, they decide to run back, and then meanwhile, they're like secretly putting units up here. So your attention is now up here, where these units are fighting. And then all of a sudden, this is in your base. You know, so this is of course something very hard to practice, but having that awareness is crucial at this skill level. Not to say that I would have done a better job seeing that, but you know, as it is, it kind of works out for you. I mean, you did lose some wins, so that kind of sucks, but like, you know, not a ton of damage, so it's kind of fine. And because of the engagement here, because they didn't pull back fast enough, you got some free kills here. So now you can resurrect these units, and now like the army advantage is in your favor. Because they, you know, basically anytime you do that kind of maneuver to try to run into someone's base, you can guarantee that all those grunts are dead. You know, which means you're cutting your army value down. You're not going to have as many units out. And you're trading them in for economic damage, or potential economic damage. It's not even a guarantee. And as it was up here, you know, it kind of favored Blackmelon here. So, I mean, not necessarily favored, but I mean, there's some economic damage. Yep. Alright, so now you got all these grunts to run around with. You got some medium tanks out, so you got that factory, so that's great. Energy's looking a little slim here, but yeah. I mean, basically, I feel like you could have maybe added on wind turbines a little bit faster, or had just like a couple extra going on. In fact, since your commander's moving back here, you could just like put down like, you know, 4 or 6 or something like that. Alright, so you engage here. In fact, I should slow it down. This is kind of a little too fast. Alright, so you engage here, and I think it's basically even. Let's see, it's 1500. 1800. Okay, so you got more, but the thing is, red's got this line here, and you got this line here. So this is better for red, because this is the tip of your line. You know, all these units in the back are basically not helping at the moment. You know, so you rushing in here like this is going to be better for red, because you're rushing into a line of units. So this isn't going to go so well for you. Minus 206 so far. And do the res bots get taken out? Oh no. Not the social workers. Okay, so this here, and then, okay, so you decide, you know, because there's this line, right? You decide to attack the point of it. But the thing is, the rest of the units are just right here, so they're already flanking you. You know, so, and you're going after the tanks, which have more hit points. You know, so you're going after the thing that is the tank of the group instead of the damage dealer of the group. You know, and that's not to say that the incisor has poor damage or something like that. In fact, they have more damage than the grunts, but they have sizably more hit points. Let's see, incisor 820, grunts 270. You know, so you're literally going after the thing that absorbs damage, just to be flanked by these other guys. Now your pounder, of course, good work, you know, on those grunts, because that's what pounders do. But yeah, I mean, it could have gone much worse if that pounder wasn't there, essentially. So it kind of worked out for you, and it seems like red is completely pulled out of that area. You know, so that means you have all this to reclaim slash resurrect, so that's great. So at this point, these units could keep going, but I think you're maybe distracted with something else and they're just kind of staying there. So I think, you know, you just kind of miss an opportunity to queue up some movements with these units. Like, you know, like send them where they are, and then send them like up here, and then send them like down here. Just was like the shift queuing for movement. And then hopefully, you know, your attention goes back to them by the time they reach down here. Because I think they sit here for a minute, and I'm going to look at your player camera. Whoops, that's the wrong player camera. All right, so you're focused at the base. All right, now you're moving the units. All right, so that bit of time, so I believe you just like ate some scrap or something. I don't know. You didn't. I don't think that you did too much here. Like, it wasn't worth that time to not move these grunts, because these potentially, you know, you basically just like won this battle, and now you have the freedom to run around here. You know, so you're kind of missing that opportunity and giving red giving red the chance to react to something like that. Now red is pulled way back here, which, you know, that again, that's a good opportunity for you, and you can potentially just set up a strong tank line here and have these faster grunts swing in to do some economic damage. And yeah, if I saw an exploiter, I might even just avoid it, because yeah, exploiter. Maybe even just like, instead of doing it like that, running around this way, or like running up to here, seeing the exploiter, and then just running around it. Because yeah, that's a little rough, but it is nice to have, you know, to basically split the attention of your opponent. You know, as Spoderfriend did up here earlier, engaging this army and pulling back, and then secretly running in units this way, you could do something similar. And the nice thing about going in the back, you know, compared to how Spoderfriend did it, Spoderfriend did it where he's attacking the fronts here, which is where all the units come out. So that's not going to work out as well, right? Because there's also con turrets here. Potentially, you know, they could put down a light laser turret really quickly. But in the back, and especially when someone spreads out their economy this much, you know, there's potential to find damage, essentially. Because it's not where the units are coming out. So that's why I like this play a lot more. But then, yeah, you also have units coming out of here that can reinforce the front here. So even if you have to pull back a little bit, maybe pull back to your towers or something like that, it's totally fine. Because you could potentially do like some game-ending damage right there. So you also have this contingency down here that could do more. And yeah, I know that a lot of this stuff requires extra APM. You know, to be able to run these grunts up here, realize that there's an exploiter, and then just like dodge and go somewhere else. You know, or maybe you come down here and see an exploiter too, and you realize, well, you know, this is the edge of the map, I can't really do anything else. There's no other exploiters in this area here, so I can maybe take this one out because it's separate. And then, you know, I guess there's this one behind it too, so I mean, you can't really do too much, but like, just poking it, just seeing, just getting your opponent to, you know, have to have more awareness and more APM to deal with multiple areas. Is very, very strong. Unfortunately for you, you do not have a radar here, so these are kind of just getting in for free, and you don't have exploiters to contest, you know, to do anything about it in terms of static defenses. But yeah, that's kind of how exploiters feel in general. Is like, you know, once they're up, and if it's a grunts on grunts kind of fight, like you know, there's not much harass that you can actually do against exploiters. You know, unless it's like medium tanks or something like that. But we're not even really at that point yet. Yeah. So this is unfortunate that one gets through because one can do quite a bit here. What's here? Are you building a tower? Okay, you're building a tower here. I mean, you probably know this already, but like the wind turbines are going to block this tower. So like it's not even really going to help that much. I completely understand, like, you know, if you know something's coming and you need defense now, you're not going to wait for the constructor to walk over on this side and build build the turret, right? So like I get that. It just sucks that it's on that side. All right, moving along. All right, so you are using these units to look around. Unfortunately, you know, since they weren't doing so earlier, now there's a whole nother exploiter here. So now it's even harder to do stuff. Okay, a couple of artillery, I like that. Let's see, you just got 3? Okay. Yeah, three's good. Take down these exploiters. I wouldn't mind if you had, like I was saying earlier, with like potentially having some rocket bots down here. You know, I wouldn't mind having a couple of artillery down here either. Knowing that there's no army here. You know, if you're concentrating most of your forces up here, they have to respond with most of their forces up here as well, right? You know, so that means a couple of artillery can actually just like take this out completely for free and apply some pressure. And now they have to pull some of their units over here to worry about that. In which case you just pull your artillery back, but they have to keep their army there because you have that artillery there. Which means now you have more of a potential up here, depending on how many units they actually pull for that. Oof. Yeah, so that's not great. Either you get out of there, but unfortunately a little too late. Lost a bunch of stuff. Okay, so this here you have to be very careful too. Your enemy has this concave, and you got this ball again. Which, you know, means there's stuff shooting at you from all these angles. But from your end, you know, some of these units in the back, these grunts, for example, not going to be fighting. The medium tank, I believe, shoots over each other, so like you're fine with that. But you're also like, you know, essentially fighting him with a lot less than they have. Right, so this is what, 3,000? And this is nearly 5,000. You know, so this is just a bad idea in general because there's so much more of them. Instead, you should be pulling back and reinforcing. Because engaging this basically means A, you're going to lose a bunch of units, even if you do pull back. And the units lost are going to go to them because, you know, they just have more here, so they can defend the res bots. You know, so it's definitely a sizable mistake to engage with a smaller army in this location. So if you had pulled back to, like, say here, and they did the same thing, well, now it's much easier for you to resurrect and reclaim the dead units there. So, like, it would have probably gone to you in that case. And then it would have been Red's mistake to, like, possibly stay there, depending on how that actually goes. Okay. I mean, you take out a couple of exploiters, but like, you know, you're losing a lot of grunts for that. A lot of grunts for only 400 metal damage worth. I mean, I guess plus the income, right? So I mean, it's not nothing, but it's like a lot of loss just, you know, for that. Get the res bots. Ah, got a couple. So yeah, now that, you know, because you engaged there and then pulled back, now all of a sudden there's, you know, there's all that reclaim that they're getting. And they got all these construction bots over here to reinforce it with towers. So now that just like saves them the trouble of like, well, if they go in there too deep, now they're in trouble, but now they can afford to. And this grunt's peel off is also a reaction to you engaging over here. So that whole engagement was really, really poor for you. Because not only are they, not only do they have the metal from the Rex, your army's smaller for it. Oh, and it opens it up so that red can just run up here. Otherwise they would have had to have run all the way around, right? So and seeing that these are not exploiters, this is very easy for them to kill that off. And even if they were exploiters, this is a lot of grunts. And because of the towers and, it's a lot of tanks too, so like there's not much you can do about this either. So now you're just in a lot of trouble. Yeah, and you know that, so you're pulling a lot of stuff up there. I mean, this is going to leave Rex on your side, but... Oh, yikes. Yeah, this might be the end here. Maybe not yet. Gotta dance hard. Alright, you don't take too much damage, that's nice. Alright, meanwhile... Okay, so those grunts even went into two different groups here. So that means there's the distraction group and then there's the damage group. And this is the distraction group because it's bigger. They see that there's a pounder, so they're like, nope, let's not fight that. And then they send these units over here. Now, luckily you had another pounder, so like it was totally fine. But yeah, it just sucks. There's a lot of units running around now. Alright, so you do have an exploiter here. Unfortunately, some of your towers block it a little bit. And yeah, that is basically a mistake by them. Because now that metal's yours. Oof. Yeah, so this is just like... This is big time over at this point. I mean, these units are basically being inted at this point. Red has a tower here that already covers some of these wrecks. Your tower's all the way back here. And they don't, they cover some of these wrecks here, but at the same time, like, you're basically engaging against an overwhelming force with just a little bit. And it would have been stronger for you to just pull back to your towers and defend up here. Make it so that if they want to engage, they have to, they have to attack your towers as well as your units. And you might be thinking, well, it's over at this point, like why does it matter? And my response to that is, you don't want to teach yourself bad habits. Like, even if you're in a losing situation, the game's for sure over, you still want to micro properly. Because if you don't, you're basically telling yourself, you're basically building the muscle memory, the habits of doing it poorly. And any chance you get, you want to instead, of course, build the muscle memory to do it better. So don't throw away those precious moments of teaching your muscles to do differently. Because it can be a big deal if you want to try to get better overall. And unfortunately the dot's not there. Oh, I missed it, but yeah, your commander's dead, and that's GG. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, if I had to conclude with, like, I guess two really important things that you did differently, or should do differently, or practice to do differently. One, consider your opener. You opened with one constructor and a lot of grunts to be aggressive. But considering your opponent starts like in the middle, and it's fairly easy for somebody to grab these back mexes and just have a radar that covers this entire area. These are relatively safe. You can't really do too much. Because yeah, best case scenario is they just don't see it and you're able to do some damage. Or maybe they see it but they don't have any grunts out because they went really heavy into constructors. As it is in this game, they opened with 3 constructors and some units, between those constructors, which puts them in a great economic, they're ahead economically, but they also have enough units to defend all those nodes, all those constructors going out to grab metal, right? So from the get-go, you were already behind because of that. And I would say in this back position, you didn't really need the radar and the LLT. I mean, I guess the radar, I like radar, so like I hesitate to say no to that, but it does slow you down. And then just having, you know, basically only these 5 mexes until you build more constructors. It's kind of a big deal. Um, whereas red was grabbing, went up here, grab those 2 mexes, these 3 mexes, went over here, grab these, had another constructor going down this way to grab all this, another constructor moving forward to grab this stuff, and then even a fourth one going this way to grab these. Which means that they have to play more defensively against, your opener that was more aggressive. But, by the time your grunts get there, they're going to have enough to defend these different locations. They have the advantage of having the radar to know where you're at, and it's just going to go poorly from there. So that's one. Second thing I would say is try to be more careful with your engagements and try not to have like a ball of units against a concave. Because going in like that, it's not going to work out. It's just like that's basically an int. They're throwing away those units to do a little bit of damage to their units. And you want to keep your army advantage as much as possible when you open aggressively. And you might know this already, but ideally, you want to split off as many groups of units as you can to harass different locations. Pull their attention elsewhere. Do distraction plays. So like, you have your one, or you have a scout grunt going that way, you have a scout grunt going this way. If you keep them alive, well, now your opponent has to pay attention to both of those guys while also paying attention to the units, coming in the front. And any time that you see like, oh, this, the defense, the defending grunts are just sitting there. Well, let me just like run around them really quick and do something. Or it wouldn't obviously wouldn't be running there. It'd be like running back here or running up here. If there was like grunts here and you had a guy back here, maybe. Yeah, distraction plays, kind of like what red did. Yeah. So yeah, just being careful with like how you move your army, trying to keep guys alive so that it is that constant pressure from that unit. Even if it's just one grunts, like your opponent has to be aware of it. And since it is just one grunts, you don't have to care that much, right? Like if you for some reason were too busy with macro and moving your main army and you lost that grunts, like not a big deal. But ideally, you keep them alive so that they have to keep thinking about these different locations. I hope all that makes sense. It's kind of tricky to explain. And then yeah, going back to the whole ball of units thing against a concave, you want to be choosy with your engagements. Basically, anytime you're on their side of the map, you want to be very careful with losing units because those units will just be resurrected by them, and then all of a sudden their army value goes way up. And then, yeah, try not to ball up too much. Try to have more of a line against their line. And in fact, if I have a little space to draw here, say they have an army like this, even going for this, even doing something like this with your ball to try to like ram through this, against something like tanks that might work a little bit better. But if there's a lot of grunts and stuff mixed in, they can easily just like pull up here and these guys pull back, and then all of a sudden you're surrounded here still. You don't want to be surrounded, right? So what you want to do, and this is going to be very hard because it requires that your opponent basically isn't paying attention. But if you're trying to do that kind of tactic, you want to run your ball around to this side. Because then these units are fighting your units, and the rest of their units back here are doing nothing. But even more ideally, they have their group there. You also have a group, and you swing the entire line to be like this. And then you engage that way. I'm trying to draw this a little bit better. So like even more ideally, like you have a concave, or let's say that, let's say they have a concave too, and they're just not paying attention, against, say your blob of units, you move them around this way and then attack this way. So that you have a concave of units fighting their, like, concave that's facing the wrong direction, essentially. Um, I don't know. I hope that makes sense. It's kind of it's kind of hard to. I have a hard time drawing on here, but I hope that makes sense. Anyways, I hope you learned something. I like doing this video because it's a little bit higher level, but I've been doing a lot of other replays lately, and this is something to mix it up a bit. Anyways, if you have any questions, or if anybody has any questions, leave them in the comments or in the thread. Feel free to ask them. Anyways, I'm going to sign off. GG's.